David Lenhart at the Times brought this up in one of his dispatches or columns or whatever you want to call it. He posits this. David Lenhart does. Imagine if you were a foreign leader surveying the political chaos in the United States. I really panic when I think about that. I mean, I really do, regardless of David Lenhart pointing it out or not. But here's the situation. For the first time in history, one of the two political parties in this country just fired the Speaker of the House in the middle of a term. In the Senate, one of the two party leaders, this would be Mitch the Turtle, is 81 years old. He has twice recently frozen in public, unable to speak. A Supreme Court justice has allowed wealthy political donors to finance a lavish lifestyle for him and his old lady. And that same justice's old lady urged officials to overturn the 2020 presidential election based on lies. And a likely nominee in the upcoming presidential election is facing 4 criminal trials with 91 charges against him, and regularly, I'm talking about the orange bastard, regularly speaks in apocalyptic terms about this country's future. And that jackoff, the one facing 91 felony charges, is essentially tied in the polls with the president who many voters worry is too old to serve a second term. Could things get worse? So if you were an ally of the United States, and we do still have a few, it would seem to me that I agree with David Lenhart that you would be worried a little bit, wouldn't you? I mean, how about the government in the UK or France or Germany or the Scandinavian countries or Australia or certain countries in Africa or maybe even India, although I don't trust Modi as far as I can throw the entire continent. I mean, if you were looking at the United States as a beacon, as the shining city on a hill, you probably would have lost your faith in that image put out there by Ronald Reagan all those years ago. You'd be worried. Now, if you were an enemy, like the fascist pig that dominates Russia, you'd have to be celebrating. Oh my God, look, the goddamn United States is collapsing under its own weight. Oh, yay. Peter Baker of the New York Times wrote this the other day, quote, "To many watching at home and abroad, the American way no longer seems to offer a case study in effective representative democracy. Instead, it has become an example of disarray and discord, one that rewards extremism, challenges norms, and threatens to divide a polarized country even further," end quote. And that is what's happening. But why? This is the maddening part. Why are we allowing this to happen? By we, I mean we citizens of the United States. Why are we allowing this? Why are we sitting back on our asses, in a manner of speaking, and watching these pyromaniac son of a bitches set fire to everything that people in this country have, sometimes more diligently than other times, struggled to bring into reality? Representative government that represents everybody who wants to participate. Why are we just sitting here? Okay, wise guy, what could we be doing? Well, given our system, I admit there's not a whole lot that we could do, except possibly put the leadership class in this country on notice that we just weren't going to take it anymore. Now, it would be risky. I've always admitted, I think, if I haven't, I'll admit it now, that my suggestion of putting 10, 20, 30 million people in the street to just sit down and do nothing carries with it some risk. It does. because our adversaries might see that as a good time to drop a couple of nukes right into the heart of this dying democracy. I don't think that would happen because of mutual assured destruction. But we've got to do something. We have a Nazi leadership in this country, headed by this orange bastard, who suggests death for the head of our military, who suggests, his latest is that shoplifters should be executed. I mean, Trump has always fetishized this idea of violence. He wants to see violence. He will never participate in it. He's a fucking coward who runs and hides in his bedroom when things get weird. But he wants to see other people fighting and burning and shooting and killing and dying. In other words, he is conducting himself as the person he truly is, a fascistic coward. So why are we why is our news media giving him coverage? Now, David Lenhart points out something, the factors that have contributed to this national turmoil that we're going through right now. And he points out, and I agree, decades of stagnant living standards have caused voter frustration. You know, we have spent since the 80s, haven't we, watching the wealthy get wealthy beyond imagination. We have watched the national treasure being, money, being controlled, the majority of it being owned by 0.1% of the people in this country. The distribution of wealth has just not happened. It's all been floating to the top and grabbed in great handfuls by these son of a bitches who sit at the top of the food chain. We've watched this for 40 years. And we've heard all the bullshit promises from the Democratic Party about, we've got to do something to make our economic system more fair and equitable for the working person, right? But it hasn't happened. And even now, with all the labor strikes that are occurring, we still hear media talking about how it's going to affect the bottom line of the companies, how it's going to throw the economy into turmoil, rather than supporting these workers and saying, yes, God damn it, it's time. It's time for the capitalist system to come up with an equitable way of distributing the wealth that the workers produce. And if it is not going to happen, then the capitalist system is going to be burned to the ground. But, maybe not in that extremist language, but you don't hear that being said. Do you? Social media. That's another factor in the rise of this turmoil. Oh my God, did that turn out to be a monster? When you couple social media with the rise of cable television networks willing to promote lies, to make up lies, to broadcast lies 24/7, I'm thinking of this goddamn Fox sewer, that adds to this inflammation of discourse. People can't talk about politics anymore. I can't. I do a Tuesday night meeting with a lot of former Democrats who are former office holders, people here in Atlanta. I've mentioned that before. And even among our little group, there's usually maybe 14, 15, 16 of us who gather together at this tavern, have dinner together, the greatest bar food in Atlanta, drink some beers, carry on, get into discussions. And a couple of Republicans have joined us. Republicans who were not, they were real Republicans. They weren't these Christian fascist devils. But even among this group, I noticed this past Tuesday that the discussions that we get into are getting a little edgy, back and forth. Not edgy with the Republicans who are at the table, but among the Democrats. Because the system is failing us. And by the system, I mean the system of law and equal justice and equal opportunity under law. That's what I'm talking about. The capitalist system is, like religion, destroying representative government. If the average person, that would be me, maybe you, if we come to fully understand that we do not have a voice in saying how we're going to be governed, how long do we put up with that? If we come to understand fully that money talks and democracy crawls, if it moves at all, how long are we going to put up with that? Until we say, wait a fucking minute, this is not what I learned in 8th grade. This is not what I learned in high school. This is not what I studied in college. You know, screw this. This is not working out. So how long do we passively accept that it's not working out? How long do we accept the idea that fascists are slowly but inexorably moving into positions of power in this country, whether it's economic power, religious power, or political power? In fact, all three. How much longer do we put up with this? Or are we just going to, just adopt the attitude of, well, they're all full of shit. Maybe they are all full of shit, but what are we going to do about it? Are we going to do anything? This is the question. I am a product of the 60s and 70s, and I remember the activism then. And I grant you, the long-term effect of the activism in the 60s and 70s was zero. Oh, we got some legislative things done. We got some changes made, but human beings in this country and globally are still voracious goddamn animals who just want to fucking kill each other and steal everybody else's stuff. Now, if that's the basic nature of human beings, well, then I guess, our time will soon be up on this little blue marble. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. The Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.